Hi everyone, good evening. So in tonight's topic, we're going to be looking at that of quadratics. Now, when it comes to quadratics, there's two different sections we can do. There's one, they may ask us to factorize a quadratic, or they may ask us to solve a quadratic. Now, in solving a quadratic, in order to get the roots of the equation of a quadratic, it's going to be either we factorize. If we don't factorize, we may use the equation or the formula. So we call it the quadratic formula. We may have to complete the square, or we may have to use the graph. So quadratics, either we may look at it through factorizing, or we may have to solve it. In order to solve, we'll have to either factorize it first, or use the quadratic formula, or complete the square, or the graph. Now, in order for us to go through these, I must first go over factorizing a quadratic. So I'll go over factorizing a quadratic in this class. In factorizing, when we factorize quadratics, what we need to understand first things first is that a quadratic is always in the form of ax squared plus bx plus c. So a quadratic is always in this form, where a is number in front of x squared, b is the number in front of x, and c is the constant. It's not attached to any letter. When we're factorizing, we are basically introducing brackets. So let's take a look at some quadratic questions that we can factorize. It's important to note that not all quadratics can be factorized. Right, so not all quadratics can be factorized. And that's one thing that we have to remember. All right, so let's say they gave us this question. So let's say they told us x squared minus 8x plus 15. So x squared minus 8x plus 15. So we're looking at factorizing. Now, the first step in factorizing any quadratic is that multiplying the value of a, whatever a is, we multiply it by the value of c. So in a question like this, what we'll do is you'll pull out what is a, what is b, and what is c. So in x squared minus 8x plus 15, a is the number in front of x squared. There's no number, so we understand that it is 1. B is the number in front of x, so we understand that it's minus 8. And C is the constant, which is 15. So first step, we multiply A by C. So A is 1, C is 15. So I put M because I multiply them both. 15 times 1 is 15. Next step, number 2, is that you're going to find two numbers. And remember, we could write this on our flashcards because you don't want to forget it. So you find two numbers which, when multiplied, I'm writing shorthand, gives answer in step 1. And at same time, when added or subtracted, gives value of b. So we're going to find two numbers, which when multiplied will give me 15, and when added or subtracted, but I'm just going to put A for added because remember, we could add a negative number, which will make it subtraction, to give us negative 8. Pausing here for a second. Right. Now, in doing so, what you do is that you're going to look at this number, right? So you're going to look at the number from step 1, look at all the ways. Right, so you're going to look at all the ways we can multiply to get the number in step 1. So we'll be looking at all the ways we could multiply to get 15. Starting with 1 by itself, I could also multiply 3 times 5. That's all that I could get. So look at all the ways we can multiply to get the number in step 1, and we're going to select the pair that's, so we're going to select the pair that will give you the value of B when added or subtracted. Now remember, it's very sensitive to signs, right? So meaning that signs are important. So the pairs of numbers would be 1 and 15 and 3 and 5. So we have to select the pair that when it multiplies to get 15, but also if we were to add them or subtract them, we'll get 8. Now, 1 add 15 is not 8, nor is 15 minus 1. However, I could add 5 and 3 to make 8. So we're going to be using this pair. So using the pair that when multiplied will give me 15, and when added or subtracted will give me 8. Now pay attention to the signs, right? Because remember, it's negative 8. So in order for us to get negative 8, when we add, it means that both of them had to be negative. So negative 3 minus 5, remember we add and keep the sign. So that's how we got negative 8. And then when we multiply those two, we multiplied like normal, but because we had those two same signs, my answer would have been positive, hence positive 15. So my next step is that we're going to use the pair so use the pair to break up the middle term only. So we're going to use the pair to break up the middle term only. All right, so here's what I'll do. I'll cover these for now as we're just looking at factorizing at the moment. So remember the quadratic we were given was x squared minus 8x plus 15. So you're going to use those numbers to break up the middle term only. So the first term will stay the same. My last term will stay the same. But the middle term, we're going to break it up using those numbers. So it will be minus 3x minus 5x. Because isn't minus 3x minus 5x minus 8x? When we add them and keep the sign, we get minus 8x. So it's like we're breaking it up. We're replacing it. All right, so after we use that pair to break up the middle term only, we're going to factorize by grouping. So step 5 is to factorize by grouping. Now, basically, anytime you have 4 terms, remember term could be a number alone, like this. So this is a term. It could be letter or letters alone, like this one. Or they could be numbers and letters like these. They are all separated by either an addition or a subtraction sign. So when we factorize by grouping, it must have 1, 2, 3, 4 terms, right? And this one has 4 terms. So we're going to factorize by grouping. In factorizing by grouping, we pair the terms. Right, so we're going to pair up the terms. So we have the first term and the the first pair of terms and the second pair of terms. So you pair the terms. And then we factorize by HCF, or highest common factor, the first pair only. So we're going to factorize only the first pair. So this is my first pair. What you do is you look for the highest common factor of the numbers and the highest common factor of the letters. What does HCF mean? So in finding the HCF, look at highest number so you look at the highest number that can divide number. Guys, make sure your cameras are off, okay? Otherwise, it will show up. Right, so look at the highest number that can divide without or into each number without leaving a remainder. So I have 1 and 3. So the highest number that will be able to divide into each of them will be 1. Now, if anybody has trouble finding the HCF for each of the numbers, just look at all the ways you can multiply to get that number. So like we have 1 times table. We're looking at all the ways you can multiply to get 1, only 1 times 1. I just going simple, right? For 3, all the ways that you can multiply to get 3, 1 times 3. So the highest number in common would be 1, right? So if you have trouble finding the HCF, look at each number, all the ways that you can multiply to get that number, and you choose the highest in common. So the highest of the numbers will be 1. And for the letters, you look for letters that are in common in both of them. For letters, find if any is in common in both. Right, so see how I have X here and I have X here, they're in common. So take the one with the lower power. So if you see how we have differences in powers, you see this X here, it has no power. So we understand that it's one. So we take one, or I should say take the one. With lower power. So the HCF of the numbers will be 1. I don't have to put the 1 because it's understood. Pull out what's in common. I have x squared and x. So I pull out the one with the lower power. After which, I'm going to divide each term by HCF. So we divide each of these terms by the HCF, and remainder goes in brackets. Right, so I'm going to divide each of these by what we pulled out. Whatever you pull out, you divide each of these two terms by what you pull out. Because remember, we're working with the first pair only. So this x squared is like x by x. So it's like x by x divided by x. So when I cancel this with this, I'll be left with x. So the remainder, when I divide it into x squared, I'll be left with x minus 3x divided by x. X will cancel with x. So it'll just be 3. Right? So the remainder goes inside of the bracket. Now in purple, in the rules, that's the rules for factorizing by HCF. Now, after we do that, we're going back to our normal factorizing by grouping. So we're going to next copy and paste your brackets or duplicate your brackets. I just like to say copy and paste. You know, when you copy and paste, whatever you copy is going to be pasted. So copy and paste the brackets. You duplicate in your brackets. You rewrite in your brackets, however you want to see it. Next, ask yourself, what would I multiply by out here, by inside, to give me the last pair? So I'm going to write that as the next rule. So ask or find what you can multiply by. I don't have plenty space here, but I'm going to come on the other side here. So finishing up the rule in this section here. Right, so copy and paste bracket, and then find what you can multiply by the duplicated brackets or the copied brackets to give the second pair, the original second pair. Right, so this is the original second pair here. So you ask yourself, if I look here and I have x, and up here I had minus 5x. So in order to get minus 5x from x, I'll have to multiply by minus 5. So minus 5 by x will be minus 5x, minus 5 by minus 3. Remember, we multiply like normal, so that's 5 3s are 15. And because we have two same signs, the answer would have been positive. After which, you're going to pull out one of the duplicated pairs or copied pairs, and everything outside goes together in another set of brackets. Right? So we're going to pull out one of the duplicated pairs, x minus 3. So I'm pulling out one. So it's like you're factorizing it again. Right? So you're pulling out the x minus 3. And then whatever is not inside of the bracket or is outside, so I have x here, sign inclusive, minus 5 here. So whatever is not inside of the brackets, we put them together into the other pair, the other set of brackets. All right, so let's take a look at the another example. 2x squared minus x minus 6. Remember, quadratic is always in the form of ax squared plus bx plus c. A is the number in front of x squared, so that's 2. B, there's no number. But anytime there's no number in front of a letter, we understand that it's 1. So it's not just 1, it's negative 1. And C is the number that does not have a letter attached. That's a constant. So it's going to be negative 6. Now, if you recall from the last example, I would have added m here. M multiplying. So we're going to be multiplying A times C. So A is 2 and C is negative 6. So we have 2 times negative 6, which will be negative 12. And then when we add them, right, so we either add or subtract. So the second step, find two numbers, which when multiplied gives answer in step 1, which was negative 12. And at the same time, when we add or subtract those two numbers, it gives us the value of b. So when we add or subtract, it must give me negative 1. So step 3, look at all the ways you could multiply to get the number in step 1. So looking at all the ways I could get 12. Start with 1 times 12, and then we're going to send in order. 2, we could multiply 2 times 6. 3, we could multiply 3 times 4. So look at all the ways we could multiply to get 12. And you select the pair that if you add or subtract, it will give you negative 1. So 12, add or subtract 1 will not give me negative 1. 6, add or subtract 2 will not give me that. But 4, there's a possibility if I minus 3, I could get 1. So you're going to select the pair. But remember, this pair is very sensitive with respect to your signs, whether it's positive or negative. Because remember, it was negative 12 and negative 1. Now, in order for you to get a negative number, when you're multiplying, it means one of the two numbers will be negative. And because we'll be subtracting and b was negative, it meant that the bigger number had to be negative. So the two numbers would have been positive 3 and negative 4, because 4 3s are 12, because they're two different signs, it would be negative 12. And then 4 minus 3, remember when you have two different signs, we subtract and keep the sign a bit bigger. So 4 minus 3 is 1, and because the 4 is bigger, we'll keep it negative. So step 4, you use that pair of numbers to break up your middle term only. So remember, it was 2x squared minus x minus 6. So your first term stays as is. Your last term stays as is. And you're going to break up the middle term using those two numbers that we used. So you could put any one first once the sign is correct in front of it. So I'll put positive 3x minus 4x, because isn't negative 4x plus 3x we minus, keep the sign of the bigger number, and we'll get minus 1x. So now we end up with 4 terms. Each one of them will be either separated by an addition or subtraction sign. When we have 4 terms, we perform factorization by grouping. So anytime you are given an expression with 4 terms to factorize, you're performing factorizing by grouping. So we pair up our terms, first pair, second pair. Look at your first pair. I have 2 and I have 3. You're going to pull out the highest number that could divide into those 2 numbers. If you cannot remember how to find the HCF, you're just basically looking at all the ways you could multiply to get the number. So like 2, the only way I can multiply to get 2 is 1 by 2. 3, the only way I can multiply to get 3 is 1 times 3. So you look at that and you pull out the highest number that is in common, which in this case is 1. So you're going to find the HCF of only the first pair. So only the first pair we're focusing on. So the HCF of 2 and 3 is 1. But we don't have to put the 1 because it's understood. So looking at the letters, for letters, you're looking for if there are any in common in both of them. So I'm seeing X here and X here. So we're going to pull out the X. It's in common. Anytime you have letters and they have powers, if a letter has no power or index, we understand it's 1. So you pull out the 1 with the lower power. So we're going to pull out X. 1X, but we don't have to put the 1 because it's understood. After which, you're going to divide each term by the HCF, and the remainder goes inside. So you're going to divide this term by what you pulled out, and this term by what you pulled out. So I have 2x squared divided by x. That comes like saying 2 by x divided by x. So this is 2x squared. X will cancel with x. So I'll be left with 2x. So that's the remainder. It will go inside of the bracket. And then 3x divided by x. X will cancel with x. And I'm left with 3. So that will also go inside. So remember, this part is called factorizing by highest common factor. And you're only doing it to the first pair only. Step 8, copy and paste the brackets. So you're going to take the brackets, copy, when you press copy, exactly what you copied will be pasted. Or in other words, you duplicate it or you rewrite it. But I just like to say copy and paste. Next, find out what you can multiply by the copied brackets to give you the original second pair. Right? So this is your second pair here. So we want to know what would I multiply by here to give me the second pair. So what I like to do is I like to look at the term with x. So here I have 2x, and here I have negative 4x. So if I have 2x, what would I multiply by it to give me negative 4x? So in order to make 2 4, I have to multiply by 2. And in order to make it negative, it has to be by -2. So I always tend to look at just the x. What would I multiply by to get that second term in x? So -2 by 2 will give me -4x. And once you get that correct, you'll see that -2 by 3 will give me the second term in the second pair. So 3 2s are 6. It'll be negative. Last step. Pull out one of the duplicated pairs or one of the copied pairs. So remember, I have 2x plus 3 copied. I'm only going to pull out one copy. And then everything that is not inside goes together in another pair of brackets. So x is outside, -2 is outside. So we're going to put it together in another pair. Now that is basically factorizing it again. But if I just tell you factorize it again, we might get confused. So I broke it down into easier terms. So if we were to factorize the quadratic 2x squared minus x minus 6, my solution will be 2x plus 3 by x minus 2. All right, so in this here would be factorizing a quadratic. Now, they may tell you factorize and hence solve. If they tell you factorize and hence solve, it means that you're going to use where you got up to so far in order to solve a quadratic. Now, if they want you to factorize a quadratic, they will tell you factorize. But if they tell you to solve it, you may be able to choose factorization. And then when you finish factorizing, so I would have completed factorizing this one, we could solve it. Now, when we're solving, you normally see that the quadratic is equal to 0. So when we finish factorize, we could put this equal to 0. Now, any number multiplied by another number, in order for it to be 0, it means that either this number is 0 or this number is 0. So for example, if I say 6 times 0 is the same as 0 times 6. So if my solution is to be 0, it means that either one of these two must be 0 in order to give me 0. So we use that logic in solving a quadratic. So that means in order for this to be equal to 0, it means that either this is 0, so either x plus 3 is equal to 0, or this is equal to 0. X minus 5 is equal to 0. In every quadratic, we're going to have two values for the unknown. And you have to put the two values. So it's either x plus 3 is equal to 0. Remember, when you carry across, you do the opposite operation. So therefore, x is equal to -3. Or in x minus 5 is equal to 0. So I'll carry this across. Once you cross, you do the opposite. So it becomes positive 5. So if I were to hence solve this quadratic, my solutions will be either x is negative 3 or x is positive 5. And these are called the roots of the equation, the quadratic equation, or the solution to this quadratic equation. So this is one way of solving a quadratic, through factorizing it first and then solving.